So I received some more communications from my German stalker. This guy is pretty funny. Hello, Thomas. We are all mourning the waste of your talent. We know how gifted you are, but you waste your time in these fights, and it would be so sad if you left the mortal coil. And then he sends me an image of an obituary that has my name. And fun guy, right? Fun guy. Always worried about the Turks. The Turks are coming. You never talk about this, and So this guy is kind of weird. It's messages. He'll send me recorded messages. He's called me before, but I've started to really avoid him. He's tied in with that guy who thinks he's a vampire, Tafiowski. It's interesting, but it's not like there hasn't been a fear of Turks in Germany before. We talked about this. In 1688, the Turks made it through Germany, went to Austria, literally surrounded Vienna and laid siege on it. And they didn't get in, but they carried away 40% of suburbia. Now, that would be like the Ottomans coming to LA, and you'd hear the town crier say, they've taken all the women in Encino. There's no more people in Beverly Hills, right? And it was bloody too. And 100 years later, 1788, you had Mozart going into debt because once again, the Turks were back, and, all of Mozart's subscription concerts dried up. The favors bestowed by nobility went away, and that was that. So he went into extreme poverty and had to borrow money consistently. It's not good. And his health probably suffered. But he did climb out of it towards the very end and came up with the Zauberflaute, the magic flute, and the Requiem, and just amazing, amazing works. So he got back into that creative flow that he had in 1787, 1786, 1785, 84 was Figaro. Keeps on going on. All the great piano concertos of 81 and 82. And in 1781, he was living on the Schulstrasse in Vienna. And he had it going on, but he was living large. And so part of the problem was he's making all this money, he's an entrepreneur, and he doesn't understand wealth preservation. And so most of it was probably in Aspie, just like Gutenberg. Gutenberg, his death day is coming soon. He's going to be 553 years dead on February 3rd. So he died in 1468. And what's interesting about him is he also had an albatross around his neck. He had debts. So right around 1439, Gutenberg got involved in a risky business venture where he was making these polished metal mirrors for sale. And he was selling them, or his salespeople were selling them to pilgrims that were coming to a festival in a town called Aachen. And that was to view what was on display. These were the relics of Emperor Charlemagne. So the mirrors were sold as something very special, that they would capture the invisible holy light given off by religious relics. So there was probably some ether element to the sales pitch. And unfortunately, the weather was bad. The festival was delayed because it was rainy, and money had already been put into the product. So, the money was already spent that had been made to, or that were supposed to go to the mirrors. They didn't go. And so Gutenberg got really uptight, and he had to tell his investors, look, I'm going to give you a secret that'll make you rich. And that secret was probably his idea of a printing press, which came from a screw press to make wine and add movable type and ink. And, this is a guy who knew his stuff. He knew metals really well. And his name actually wasn't Gutenberg. That was just where he lived. He had other names. So if you look through his life, you're going to see that, what we know of his life. We know he was born probably around 1400, maybe as early as 1394, and as late as 1404. And he literally had this idea for a long time. He borrowed money twice from a guy named Johannes Gutenberg, who was a wealthy moneylender. And, you know, Gutenberg had a really early book called Turkish Calendar, which I've actually seen. I've seen actually the 42-line Bible too in Pasadena. But at any rate, there was Gutenberg, and he was, after his masterpieces, the Bible and the Psalter, things had changed in Europe. And so he wrote this book, Turkish Calendar, because in 1453, the Turks had conquered Constantinople, and they were coming in. So you have the Ottoman Empire that lasted 700 years. You had repeated invasions of the Turks into Europe. So there was a paranoia there that seems to have extended into, the psyche of my German stalker.